I didn't even know how to live. I didn't know if I wanted to live.
You've probably heard there's no greater pain than losing a child. Today's guest on Grieving Out Loud, Kym Hinchey, knows that devastation. After helping her child recover from substance use disorder, she lost him to a sudden overdose.
I got downstairs and I could hear his cat meowing behind the closed door. And the sound of that meow was really different than anything I'd ever heard before. And I pounded on his door. I was calling him. I still was expecting him to answer, sick, saying, yeah. And he didn't. And so then I opened up his bedroom door on my side and I found him.
Just a few months after finding her 27-year-old son, Adrian, dead, she returned home to another, just devastating loss. Her husband, also dead on their bedroom floor.
He was the only one who loved Adrian with that same desperate love, fearful love.
That a parent can.
Yes.
That a parent can.
Yeah. And so when he died, as I said, I was really angry for a long time. I was angry at him. I felt abandoned. I felt like he had left me here to do this life alone.
Overwhelmed by the sudden loss of both her son and her husband within just a few months, Kym says she didn't feel like living anymore. Every day, every hour, every second was just too painful.
My younger son came to me, and his name's Gabe, and he said, Mom, can you do something for me? And I said, yes, anything. And he said, stay alive.
Since that moment, Kym has focused on understanding grief and how to navigate through the pain. Now, she not only lives a life full of meaning and purpose, but she also helps others who've lost a loved one. In this episode of Grieving Out Loud, Kym bravely shares her difficult story, the lessons loss has taught her about life, and how she's found a way to keep moving forward.
What I realized is that they're still with me. I still have a relationship with them. They influence every single thing that I do, every word I say, every step I take into the world. They are with me, and they continue to influence me. And once I realized that, once I was able to realize that the relationship doesn't end with death, I truly believe that love is the only thing we take with us when we go.
Grief rarely comes alone, and for today's guest, that truth became her lived reality in one of the most devastating ways imaginable. Kym Hinchey lost her son Adrian to an accidental overdose during the pandemic. 3 months later, she lost her husband John. Two profound losses, back to back, in a world that was already turned upside down. What she did with her grief was what brought her to this work. Kym is a certified grief educator and a grief coach, the founder of Adrian Grief Support, and the author of Then and Now, The Evolution of Grief. Her mission is one I think everyone in this community will recognize immediately: normalizing grief in a society that doesn't know how to hold it. She speaks honestly about what loss really looks like, the uncomfortable parts, the scary parts, the parts you think you just can't say out loud. And she reminds grievers they are not broken. You're going to feel very seen in this conversation. Kym, welcome to Grieving Out Loud.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I think there are so many parallels between us. We've both experienced loss. You experienced two incredibly unbelievable losses back to back. I'm grateful that I haven't gone through something quite like that. But I think what we've done with our grief is very similar. And I'm so excited to learn from you and to have our listeners and the people that watch the podcast learn from you as well.
Great. I'm excited too. Let's go.
Yeah. So let's start off just by diving into your story. Let's talk about Adrian first, your son, who was 27 when he died.
Yeah, he was 27 when he died. And Adrian was a deeply sensitive child. He had so many questions, even when he was really young. and just kind of viewed the world through this lens of questioning and wondering. And there were a lot of questions that I couldn't answer for him. And I think as he grew older and found substances, it kind of turned down the volume on some of those unanswerable questions. And he, yes, he had substance use disorder, which began when he was 15 years old after he was given pain medication by the doctor for Lyme disease.
Kym, that story I've heard time and time again on this podcast from
Yeah.
parents whose children were introduced to opioids while their brain was still developing in a medical situation.
Right. Yeah. And I remember at the time asking the doctor, this isn't going to make him addicted, is it? Because we were just starting to become aware that this was an issue, pain medication and people getting addicted to it. I think Rush Limbaugh had come out publicly during that time. And the doctor said, oh, no, 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 no. We wouldn't give him enough to get him addicted. And that doesn't happen to kids anyway.
Oh, wow. What people didn't know that and what they believed, we now know that the drug companies and Purdue Pharma in particular was being very deceptive about the
Yep.
addictive properties of these drugs and had convinced medical professionals. You
Yeah.
just wonder the what ifs. It's hard not to think about the what ifs.
Right.
What
Right.
if Adrian hadn't been prescribed that?
Oh, yeah.
And so his battle with substance use disorder, did it start kind of following these prescriptions
Yeah.
and what happened?
Yes, within 2 years after starting that pain medication, he was addicted to heroin.
Oh my gosh. So about age 17?
Yeah, he
Mm.
and we had a really, really close relationship. He was honest with me, which I'm
Oh.
grateful for, but it was also painful because I never had the deception. I never had the him
Mhm.
telling me lies. He was just brutally honest and came to me one day and said, Mom, I need to talk to you before I talk to you and Dad, and I need to tell you what's going on. And he told me that he had been using heroin. And I could feel the pit of my stomach just drop into the floor. Um,
Of course. Doesn't it seem like the worst thing that using heroin, it just seems so unbelievable, and obviously, Emily kept that secret from me. I wish I would have known more. I always say it's so you don't wanna disappoint your parents,
yeah,
and it's different. Every kid's different, although both of our children were sensitive, and almost everybody I talk to whose kid ends up with substance use disorder, there's a sensitivity there, a sensitivity. The world is so harsh
yeah,
for so many of them.
I think that that is absolutely true. I have never heard of anyone with substance abuse disorder that hasn't been sensitive and intelligent and artistic and articulate and just
Right.
a shining soul. And I think the world is too much for them.
And they get stigmatized. This is what really bothers me is they get stigmatized as bad people,
Right.
as other, as
Yeah.
even, just dispensable, just, who cares if they live or die? They're an addict, and, and I'm saying what I've heard over
Right.
the years, and what I've seen written on social media, and here you have some of the best people imaginable
Yeah.
that end up with substance use disorder, and we see that with people in recovery, people in recovery who are just tremendous human beings, who had the chance to recover. And so tell me more about Adrian's journey.
So we did the things you do. We couldn't believe that this was happening. My mother is a chemical dependency counselor. So she gave me advice. We did all of the things. He tried treatment. He tried moving away. Um, he went to a methadone clinic. He did everything. He fought really, really hard. And that's something that also people do not understand about those who are living with an active addiction. They don't want to be that way. They don't want to.
Nobody would choose that. Nobody
No.
would choose to be the slave to a substance, right?
Yeah.
You're basically turning over your whole life to this substance because I mean, psychologically, spiritually, and physically, you cannot live without it. And nobody would choose that.
No. Nobody wakes up one day and says, "Oh, I want to be a drug addict someday." Right?
No,
Yeah.
no.
So my son fought so hard. He did. He fought so hard. And I was right there with him. You could take the term codependency and put our picture next to it.
I think we've all been misled a little bit by those. I mean, I remember, having read those codependency books because I had a close family member, not my daughter, struggling with substance use disorder and thinking, oh, I'm the problem.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm trying to help, trying to stop it, but I,
Yeah.
I think I don't know that I subscribe to all of that, although I think you can certainly enable somebody.
Absolutely. And I don't, my husband, John, his father, did. He said, tough love. This is what they say, whoever they is, right? Tough love.
Right.
We need to let him hit bottom. And I said, my child is not hitting bottom as long as I am here. It's not a place my child will go. And so that created conflict in our marriage, in our
Sure, of
family.
course. How many other children do you have?
I have two other children.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And where was Adrian in the birth order?
He was the oldest. He was my
Okay.
baby. He was the one who
Mm.
taught me what being motherhood is all about. Yeah. So there was conflict between he and John, between me and John. Most of the conflicts in our family uh, were centered around Adrian's addiction. It's just true. It kind of takes over your entire life, your whole family's life. Everybody is kind of living in the rhythms of the addiction.
And there are no easy answers. So it's not like, okay, do steps 1, 2, and 3. And every situation is different. Every person is different. Every family is different. And you're out there, you're searching for answers. You're searching for help. People come to me and they ask me for advice sometimes. And I feel like, well, I've learned a lot over the years, certainly. If I had all of the answers, my kid would still be alive. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And just you're trying everything. And it's like a black cloud is following you around all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what it was like.
Have you lost a loved one to overdose or fentanyl poisoning? I'd like to invite you to share their story on our new Emily's Hope Memorial website called More Than Just a Number. They were our children, siblings, cousins, husbands, wives, aunts, uncles, and friends. So much more than just a number. You can submit a memorial today on morethanjustanumber.org.
Kym felt a sense of relief when Adrian found recovery. At 23, he seemed to be on a positive path, living at home with Kym and her husband.
He used to laugh about, he was a walking, talking cliche. He was living in his parents' basement, but he wanted to stay away from the people that he knew would be an influence on him and his sobriety. And he wasn't quite ready to be out there by himself. So we were kind of the safety net. He was living with us. He was living in the basement where he had his own little place, and he was doing really well. Anybody who lives with someone in addiction knows we have these hopes for them, this future, something ahead. And I could see it even when Adrian couldn't. This is his rosy future. He's finally going to get the life he deserves. He's finally going to get to be the man that I always knew he could be. And it really seemed like he was on that path. He was going to school. He was starting his own business. He was working. He was starting to make friends carefully. And then the pandemic happened and the lockdown happened. And all of those unanswered questions, the volume turned back up. So,
And we know the pandemic was so hard on so many people. We saw so many mental health issues. We saw a huge spike in overdoses and fentanyl poisonings, in deaths, a huge, huge spike in all of these things in 2020, 21, 22, 20, the years that followed, the immediate years that followed.
yeah.
For Adrian, the pandemic meant no school, no work, and no routine. Like many others, he struggled to cope with the sudden changes and the swirl of emotions that came with them.
he's in our basement, and he relapsed, and then he died of an overdose
In your basement.
in my basement. Yeah,
And did you find him?
I did. Um, I
I'm
have
so sorry.
this. I have this little voice in my head. Some of us do. Um, Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I hear that so often from clients who their child has died. That they get a feeling that they have these thoughts that something's wrong, and that's exactly what was happening to me. And I thought something's wrong with him. And the night before, he had told me he wasn't feeling well, so I texted him and said, "Do you want me to pick up anything for you on my way home?" And he normally would have shot back a list of 10 things. He would have been like, yeah, if you see a giraffe on sale, bring it home. He was really funny, and he didn't answer. And so I waited and waited, and that text message got so loud, the silence. And I texted him a couple more times. He didn't answer. And I thought, okay, maybe he really is sick. Maybe I should, take him to urgent care. And I texted my husband, John, and said, have you seen Adrian today? And he said, no, but I heard him earlier in the bathroom up here. Well, it turned out that was not Adrian. That was his younger sibling. So I had that little bit of reassurance, but it just kept getting louder and louder, the silence. And I had this personal SOS. That's what I called it, that I would send to him. And he never failed to answer it. Never. Not if he was high, not if he was angry with me, not if he was with friends. He always, always answered, because I think he understood that this was my SOS, and I never overused it. And I said, are you alive? And he did not answer, because he wasn't.
Him.
Yeah.
I get that. I was trying to text my daughter and call her on the day she died, and she wasn't answering, and I didn't want to be that naggy mom who kept trying. I did keep trying, and then I got the call.
Yeah.
But it's just, you don't want anyone to go through that.
No. And so I drove home, because, as I said, he never failed to answer that question. So I knew, oh, he's really sick. It did not occur to me that he had overdosed. This was not in my head until I got downstairs and I could hear his cat meowing behind the closed door. And the sound of that meow was really different than anything I'd ever heard before. And I pounded on his door. I was calling him. I still was expecting him to answer, sick, saying, yeah. And he didn't. And so then I opened up his bedroom door and went inside, and I found him.
Animals know, don't they?
Yeah.
Animals have that sense. And
Yeah.
and then that's something that really, that trauma complicates grief of
Yes.
being there with your dead child, because I also, was there
Yeah.
after Emily's death, after she had passed away with her. And it's an image in your mind that I would replay every day.
Yes.
I don't as much anymore, but certainly when we're talking,
Yeah.
it all comes back, and it's just a thought away. It's the exact feelings that you had. Everything comes rushing back.
Yeah, it really does. And tomorrow is his Thaniversary. That's how I refer to it. Thaniversary, taking Thanos, Greek for death, and anniversary, and putting them together.
Thaniversary.
Yep.
THANO.
Yeah, versary.
Yeah.
Because it's not an angelversary. He would think that was hilarious.
Yeah, I don't really like that term either very much. So you're the only other person I've talked to who's like, I got a different term, but I like your term.
Yeah.
I like your term.
So, but that's tomorrow. And that's, that's a day that's still marked the worst day of my life in my calendar.
Oh, of course. And there will never be. And I understand you lost your husband as well. So you've got a couple of worst
That's listed
days.
as the second worst day in my life. Yeah.
Sure. I get it.
Yeah.
And um, no matter how much time goes by, this time of year, and I always say spring for me is such a difficult time of year because I have Emily's birthday, and then I have Mother's Day, the last day I saw her alive, and then I have her death date. You're talking about your son's death date, and I it I just know something is wrong as soon as the weather starts to change and I
Mhm.
start to feel a little depression seeping in, where spring is supposed to be a happy time of year, right? Spring is supposed to
Yeah.
be rebirth and
Mm.
joy, and I start to feel depressed. I'm like, "Why am I feeling depressed?" Oh, yes, of course,
Yep.
because spring for me is no matter how many years go by, and it will be 8 years, um, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Same, same. I feel it in my body before my brain knows what's happening.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you go through all of this with Adrian, and for those listening to the podcast who've been through a death of a child overdose or fentanyl poisoning death, we all know. I mean, we all. You don't have to say a lot more for us to
Yeah.
understand the levels of grief, the depths of the grief that you face, and to turn around and lose your husband 3 months later.
Yeah. 3 months later.
How old was John? Had he been sick? What was
No,
going
he
on?
was 53 years old, and,
Oh, so young.
yeah, and he was actually in pretty good shape, but we were both devastated by Adrian's death,
Oh, of course.
but he carried an extra burden that I did not have as much, and that was the guilt, because he had been the tough love parent. He had been the one that said, "You just need to want to quit." He had so many regrets, so many things that he wished he could do over, and that just ate at him, and he was really, really struggling. I was too, obviously. I didn't even know how to live. I didn't know if I wanted to live, and, 3 months after Adrian died, I, came home to find John on our bedroom floor, and I tried CPR, but I could already tell it was too late. It was like a nightmare happening all over again. The same police came, the same everything was the same. It was like, I am living in a freaking nightmare right now. And the coroner said that he had suffered a massive heart attack, but I knew he had died of a broken heart.
Yes.
And I
Oh.
wished I could too.
Right.
Yes.
I get that sentiment.
Yeah.
Like, what is there left to live for? You lose I mean, I know you have other children,
Yeah.
Kim, but in that moment, you've lost your son, you're in the very early stages of the most devastating grief you've ever experienced in your life, and your husband dies.
Yes. Yes.
And what you're telling me is not that uncommon
Right.
because I run a support group of parents, and so many of them have suffered from health problems following the deaths of their children. It's common, the mind body connection for people to carry
Mhm.
um, the grief in physical ways and in ways that impact their health. And then there are other parents who've completed suicide or who have also died from addiction following the deaths of their children.
Yes.
But we have a member who's been very public of our support group, Jenny Orr, who's been on this podcast, who lost her daughter and a year to fentanyl poisoning, and a year her teenage daughter,
Mm.
and a year later her husband died from heart issues, and he had suffered from some health issues from COVID. But it is a broken I mean, we all have broken hearts, and they manifest themselves in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if the medical profession would start seeing grief as a factor in
Yeah.
illness, and not just say, have you been stressed lately, but say, have you experienced grief? Imagine how that might change some of those outcomes. I went to the doctor with my husband because he could barely speak, so I went as a support to him, and she was I because I was worried about him. And she was asking, about his diet, about his exercise, about all these things. And I told her, our son just died 2 months ago. And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and just moved right on.
Oh,
Now, a
really?
doctor should think this could factor into this gentleman's health,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
And,
Right.
and
That's they aren't trained, and they
no,
aren't trained necessarily for that, but
no,
we could use training
we
like that.
could.
And I think about even during those early months after Emily died, the pain I had in my chest, I
Hmm.
had physical pain. And so it affects us physically. I mean, I'm lucky I have a healthy heart, but if your heart wasn't that healthy to begin with, and especially for men,
Yes.
um, yeah, a risk factor for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, and I was angry. I was so angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at the universe. I was angry at John. How dare you get to go and me not? How dare you?
Yeah.
And so I was really in a place of absolute horrible despair where I could not see any other life for me ever. And I'll tell you about why I stayed, because my younger son came to me and his name's Gabe. And he said, Mom, can you do something for me? And I said, yes, yes, anything. And he said, stay alive. Don't die.
Yeah, because he needs you. Your other
Yes.
kids need you, I
Yeah.
mean, more than ever after because they also,
Yeah.
experience these losses in a different way, but they definitely experience them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I took a Sharpie and I wrote, don't die on a sticky note. And I put it on my dresser and I touched it every single morning. And I said, not today. As much as it depends on me, not today. And I still have that sticky note on my dresser. I still touch it. The words are all faded and, you can't really read it. It's just a smudged mess. It's all tattered. But I remember where I was and how I felt when I wrote those words and how deeply in despair I was and how I thought, I will never feel differently than this, ever. This is it. This is my life forever now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I remember those feelings. I mean, it's not right that that's your life forever, but I remember that kind of feeling, like,
Yeah.
I remember thinking, okay, I gotta live, like, 20, 30 years without my daughter, who knows how long,
Yeah.
why would I wanna do that? Why would I live in this kind of pain and this kind of despair?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but that kind of pain and that kind of despair, even after 2 tremendous losses, does not remain exactly the same.
No, it does not. And that's what I tell people all the time. You will not always feel this way. I promise you. And if somebody had told me that at that time, I wouldn't have believed them, but it
Right.
might have given me a glimmer.
So you were really hanging on by a thread.
Oh,
You're
it's
hanging on by
the
a thread.
thinnest thread.
What else did you do or what else happened that made it possible for you to survive?
Well, I found what I call my grief tribe, which is other people who have experienced grief or are experiencing grief. And I found a connection with them that gave me a sense of community. And I realized, oh, the more we talk, the more I realized, oh, I'm not the only one that's going through this. Oh, this is normal. Wait, I thought there were 5 stages of grief and we were supposed to go, through them. And wait, nobody else is going through the stages. So uh, that really was helpful to me. And then, as we discussed before, I found David Kessler and I found his Tender Hearts program.
And so for people who don't know, David Kessler is a grief expert
Yeah.
and educator. And both you and I went through David Kessler's grief educator training. We're both certified grief educators,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so also lead a support group in my community. And it has also helped me with this podcast, some of the
Sure.
knowledge that I gained. And you are with thousands of people in this training. It's a virtual training for 12 weeks. And you work on your own grief, you listen to other people. What
Yeah.
was most helpful for you in that training?
Well, I became a member of Tender Hearts first, and Tender Hearts is his online grief group for people who are in grief. And so that's where I started getting what I call the little nuggets of gold of things that I could hold on to and go, okay, I might not be able to apply this to myself today, but I'm going to keep it for later because I am seeing that other people are surviving things that seem unsurvivable. And so that's where I first saw my first glimmers of hope, like I said. Um,
And we also want to not only survive, but to thrive. And so
yes.
even saying that, it almost sounds disloyal to the people you lost, right?
Well,
How do you
yeah.
thrive without these important, cherished people in your life?
Yeah. Well, what I realized is that they're still with me. I still have a relationship with them. They influence every single thing that I do, every word I say, every step I take into the world. They are with me and they continue to influence me. And once I realized that, once I was able to realize that the relationship doesn't end with death, I truly believe that love is the only thing we take with us when we go. And once I felt that, once I realized that, and I'm not saying it happened quickly, it didn't happen quickly. It was a long and very painful process.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah. It same for me.
Then
Yeah.
I was able to ask, what would they want from me?
Right.
Yeah.
Because what would you want for them if you
Yes.
weren't there?
Of
Right. And
course.
it's no different. It's
Yeah.
no different. Your
Yeah.
loved one that you lost,
Yeah.
whoever that is, only wants the best for you because they loved you and they
Yes.
don't want you to be suffering.
Yeah. And I had another thing. I know you're going to resonate with this because I listened to your very first podcast where you talked about you didn't just want to talk about how Emily died, you wanted to talk about how she lived. And so I had this moment where I realized I was focusing on the end of Adrian's life, on the worst part of his life, his addiction. I was so focused on that and reliving it over and over and over again. Everything was focused on that, the worst. And that is not what my son would want. He didn't want to be an addict. As we've said before, no one wants to be. And here I was letting the worst times, the most dark, desperate times overshadow every sunshine moment of his wonderful life because he was so, so much more, so much more. And that was a big shift for me to realize I needed to be focusing on his life, on who he was outside of addiction. And it really changed the way that I had a relationship with him. It did. It just really did.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And that is why we do so much with my daughter's art
Mhm.
in our charity,
Yeah.
because she really truly lives on through her art. And that's a part of her that, you can see
Yeah.
her path with addiction in her artwork sometimes,
Yeah.
but it is just something that she's left behind that we honor. And it means so much. And I think about what you're doing. And I just recently heard what I thought was something so beautiful from he's a Harvard happiness professor, Arthur C. Brooks, also a best-selling author, and I've read a couple of his books, but I just heard him recently say, "Don't waste your suffering.
Yeah.
Don't waste it." So everyone suffers.
Yeah.
Everyone at
Mhm.
some level, at some point in their lives.
Right.
And not wasting it to me means doing the kinds of things you're doing now, helping others in
Yeah.
grief. Tell me where you got to the point. I understand you started thinking about how your son lived and probably your husband too.
Yeah.
And then you decided you were going to help others and
Mhm.
go through the educator training
Yeah.
and start grief support groups and write a book and do all these things.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
Well, I took David's grief educator training, and it really just grew more and more in me this certainty that I want to be the person that I needed when there was no one. Because I went to therapists. I went to 3 different therapists. The first one asked me about volunteering, and I was like, "What? Volunteering?" The second one asked no, the second one told me about addiction, talked to me about addiction for like 30 minutes. And I was like, okay, that's like hurricane prevention after the storm has passed. I knew all about addiction.
Sure, you did.
Yeah, I didn't. My son had died from addiction. So that's why I was there. And then the third one asked me about diet and exercise. And I joke,
Mhm.
but it's serious when I say my diet then was Doritos and a bottle of wine. And
Sure.
that's just where I was. And so all of those experiences felt very surreal. And I realized they don't know what I'm going through. And they didn't. I'm not saying they were bad therapists, but they weren't grief informed.
It's so interesting to me. You see a need in the world, and
Yes.
then you realize you have to be the person to fill it. I can
Mm,
relate to that on many different levels, but you see a need in the world that something's just missing.
yeah.
And there's something inside of you that answers that call.
Yeah. Yeah. If I could prevent one person from the confusion and isolation from feeling that I did, I'll do it. Absolutely. I will do it.
I know you've got a PDF on your website that people can download that talk about 5 things you wish you knew about grief,
Yeah.
right? When you started on this.
At ground zero. Yeah. The 5 things that I wish I knew about grief at ground zero.
Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K 12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe. If you'd like to check out the 5 things I wish I knew about grief at ground zero, just head to this podcast show notes. We've included a link to Kym's website. You'll also find other Grieving Out Loud episodes where we've talked with grief experts about finding joy and purpose after a devastating loss.
In the beginning, when the explosion has happened, when you are standing in the aftermath of this devastating occurrence that most of us never see coming, and you're like, how do I proceed? What do I do? And so I wanted people to know uh, what the things were that I wished that I had known at that time. Because according to everything that we were told, according to everything that society tells us, we are supposed to do these things, these steps. And so if we're not doing the steps, we think we're broken. And I really, really wanted people to understand that they're not broken. So I created this PDF, and yeah, people can go and download it and look at it. But
So, one thing, you're not broken,
you're not
right?
broken. Yeah.
What's the second thing?
Well, there's no right or wrong way
There's
to
no
grieve.
right or wrong way to grieve,
Yeah,
right?
there isn't.
Your way is your way.
Yeah, and that was really a freeing concept to me because I thought grieving was going to be sadness and crying and missing them, and it was all of those things, but there were other things going on with me, like this simmering anger that I was like, I don't think I'm doing this right. I think I'm stuck. And I hear that so often from my clients. I think I'm stuck. I'm doing this again. I'm Other people are having this experience and I'm having this experience. So yeah, letting people know there is not a wrong way to grieve. There is only your way.
So, you are not broken. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. What is the third thing?
Your grief is going to last longer than other people will understand.
Or wanna tolerate sometimes too.
Yes,
Other people, like, just get
absolutely.
over it.
Yeah,
And grief
absolutely.
changes. It changes, it morphs, it comes, it goes. It's kind of like this living thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does take longer than we expect as well. There's some weird thing, culturally, like 1 year, the magical 1 year mark.
Well, you get 3 days off work if you're lucky, I mean, I did
Right.
take more time off work
Yeah.
personally, but, I mean, how society treats it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on with your life.
Yeah. And the idea that by 1 year, okay, things are going to start to shift. But honestly, and you know this, Angela, the first year is a blur. It's like a
Yeah.
fog.
It's shock. It's the first year is
survival.
shock. And for
Uh,
you, it's like double shock. So
yeah.
yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
and then the second year is when you start to realize, oh, this is permanent. And that
Yeah.
is a devastating realization.
Depression.
Yeah.
The second year is
Yeah.
depression. That's for me anyway, what I experienced.
Yeah. And so it's going to last longer than you think. And I want
Last
people to
longer than you think.
understand that. Yeah.
And longer than society wants to
Yes.
allow you to
They're
experience it.
going to move on way earlier than you are. And the most devastating thing to me was people stopped talking about them.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's that people are afraid they're going to remind us. Like, there's nothing that could make me forget for 1 second that my son and my husband are dead, but it's just so strange the way people just kind of erase them from
Right.
conversations. And I could not
Right.
stand that. And that's why I named my business Adrian Grief Support, because I wanted to see my son's name. I wanted to hear his name. I I was I wanted his name in my life. I wanted him in my
Yeah.
life. And so that was why I named it after him.
Yeah. And then the fourth thing?
The fourth thing is that it's going to change you. And we talked about this a little bit before you started the podcast, that you're not going to go back to who you were.
I think that was really hard for me at first. In the very beginning, I thought, this is not my story.
Yeah.
This is not how my life was supposed to turn out. I mean, did you feel those feelings of resistance
Absolutely. Yeah.
to reality, to
Yeah.
what was like, I should be in control of my story. This is not who I am supposed to be, but
Right.
you're definitely changed by it. And not, there are some things certainly that I definitely am more anxious about my loved ones, like my other kids.
Sure.
Definitely more. I know bad things can happen. You know, bad
Yeah.
things can
Yeah.
happen. Well, the worst things.
Yeah.
But there are also good and positive ways that you change.
Yeah. And that's hard to swallow. It really is,
Mhm.
right? People call that post-traumatic growth. I call it the evolution of grief. That's why that's the title of my book, because it's what
It's
happens.
it also falls under that category of don't waste your suffering. If you're
Yes.
changing for the better, you're not wasting your
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah. Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's just the way that I look at it is, I felt like I had broken a limb, right? And I was trying to learn to walk on it. I was trying to learn to run on it. People couldn't see that my limb was shattered underneath me. And then as
Right.
it healed, I started to feel guilty. Like, wait, shouldn't I be limping forever? Shouldn't I be going through this pain forever? And so that's another thing that we don't expect, is that when the healing starts, we're going to feel guilty for it.
I wrote a couple of blogs about that very subject. One is called The Walking Wounded, and the other one is called The Dance Between Grief and Joy.
Yeah.
Because like, there's still be joy in your life, and how can that be
Yeah.
when I'm supposed to? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a weird place to be.
It is. But I had this realization that if I don't take this hard-earned wisdom and I hate to use all of these cliche type words, but they're real in this case. I did gain wisdom. I did gain acceptance for others. I did become a more understanding person, all of these things. And to refuse them was like just re-breaking my leg over and over and over again. And again, it was not honoring my son or my husband. It was not. It was focusing on their deaths and not their lives. And at that point, I knew what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to live in honor of them. So,
And that's exactly what you're doing. And finally, the fifth.
the fifth thing is that strength is not what you think it is.
Okay, before you dive into strength is not what you think it is. Tell me how many people have told you that you're strong.
I don't know if I have a number that.
Thousands, right? I
Yes,
mean, I hear that. I've heard that
yes.
all the time over the
You're
last
so
8 years as
strong.
well, and
You're
I think
so
I'm not
strong.
strong? I
Yeah,
don't know.
for those who listen to this who have not experienced grief, those are about the most hated words a griever ever hears.
You're so strong.
You're so
You're so
strong.
strong.
Or
Kym, you're so strong.
you need to be strong now. That I was also told this. You need to be
Told you need
strong.
to be strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just this ugly, toxic positivity that sometimes
Yeah.
colors the levels of
And
grief.
so if strength isn't what we think, that's your
Yeah.
fifth
Yeah.
point here. What is it?
For me, strength was before I, you know what I'm saying, before time, after time. In the before time, I considered strength to be having a stiff upper lip and just kind of pushing through things and
Mhm.
being very,
That's what most people think it is, right?
having
Yeah.
walls up, being, defensive, protecting myself. And for me, strength has turned out to be almost the exact opposite, letting those walls down and allowing myself to be really vulnerable and loving with people and cry. And I never would have seen those things as strength, but to become emotionally vulnerable and open with my grief and be really intentional with my grief, that has become strength to me.
I think that's beautiful. I don't know that I've heard it put exactly in that way before, but it is a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
And over this through this podcast, I have been vulnerable, telling my truth, and through my blog, and just telling Emily's story. And there, you do have to go out into, and it does take a certain amount of courage to be vulnerable because you open yourself up
Yeah.
to people that are not kind
Yeah.
and to people that don't understand. And it certainly happens. And then you have to just continue on and not falter because of that.
Yeah. To me, it means choosing love instead of fear over and over and over again. And
Mm.
I mean, you keep getting the choice presented in front of you. Are you going to respond from love or fear? And so to me, strength has been choosing love over and over and over again. Understanding when people let you down or don't respond the way that you want them to, responding to that with love is the hardest thing that you can do, but it's also so worth doing.
And then you've gone on to write a book,
Yeah.
and we'll put a link to that in our show notes. But I wanted to ask you about the loss of your partner, your
Yeah.
husband, because I can relate to the loss of a child,
Mhm.
but I rely so much on my husband for understanding and support and partnership. And so,
Yes.
how have you coped with that?
I would think that many times in those 3 months, I would think of John, whether he was in the other room and I would think you are the only person who understands exactly how I feel.
Right.
Yeah. And he was the only one who loved Adrian with that same desperate love, fearful love.
That a parent can, that a
Yes.
parent can. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when he died, as I said, I was really angry for a long time. I was angry at him. I felt abandoned. I felt like he had left me here to do this life alone. And I I didn't want to. There was no part of me that wanted to. But over time, I've come to realize that that is just what my grief looked like at that time because, anger is that big bodyguard that stands in front of all of our other feelings. All the feelings that I had over my partner dying, over the man that I had loved since I was 16 years old dying, were so huge and they were so big that anger had to stand in front of them. And I also learned you can't grieve two people at the same time. You have to grieve the losses individually. And Adrian's loss was world shattering, absolutely destroyed everything. And I had to process that before I could even begin to look at John and losing him. And so, in many real ways, I am deep in grief over John right now.
Of course.
Yeah. And
How could you not be?
yeah,
And you
so
probably always will be to some extent.
I absolutely will be. I absolutely will be. You know, we grew up together. I spent more of my life with him than I did without him. And he was really my rock. He was a very steady man who was just kind of my safe harbor. And then when I lost him, I lost that too. I lost everything. The people who are listening to this who have lost their partner will understand that becoming a me after being a we is so frightening. It's so scary. You don't know how to do it. There's no instructions, and you're incredibly, incredibly lonely. Yeah.
That's what's scary to people, I think, is the thought of that
Yeah.
loneliness.
I won't bright side grievers ever. I never sugarcoat stuff. I never bright side them. It's true. It's the loneliest thing that you can go through. It really is. It's awful.
And what's getting you through it today?
Well, again, I know that our relationships do not end with death. I know this. I don't say I believe it because I know it. Capital K, no. That the love continues between us and the relationship continues, and he is with me in everything I do. The strange thing, and I'm not sure if this is true for you, but it's true for me and a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends who are griefy people, is that we don't think of them less after they die. If anything, we start thinking about them more. And that's one of the things that the outside world has no idea. They're thinking, okay, it's been 6 months. I mean, how often could you be thinking about it? Well, every 6 seconds at that point. It's constant. So that doesn't change, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed for me. This morning, I was sitting outside in the yard watching the dogs run around, and Adrian and John were right there with me. And I'm thinking to them, like we're having a conversation. And that's normal in grief. That's really, really normal. But people think, oh, cuckoo, if you say that, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I think it should be more normalized. And I think also the work you're doing, putting your energy into helping others. I always say, and I've said it time and time again, helping others helps me. That has been where I have found the purpose in the pain, and I'm sure
Absolutely.
you as well.
Yeah, helping is healing.
Yeah,
I believe that.
helping
Yes,
is healing.
helping is healing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story with our listeners and all those who are now watching the podcast on YouTube as well. And just really appreciate the fact that you're so open and vulnerable and honest about everything that you've been through. And I think your story and your willingness to be educated and to go out and then help others, not wasting your suffering at all,
yeah.
and turning it into something very purposeful, very meaningful is a gift to the world.
Mm.
So thank you for doing that, Kym.
Thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. I'm just so touched to talk with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Grieving Out Loud. If you found it helpful, please take a moment to share it with loved ones and rate and review it. Together, we can make a difference and change lives. If you'd like more information about our organization, Emily's Hope, we've posted a link to our website in the show notes. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wannenberg King and Kaylee Fitz.